Alien is one of the scariest movies ever made, with some of the creepiest creatures and enormous sets. I love that the crew is made up of basically space truckers, who all have unique personalities and are good at what they do, but thrown into a nightmare with a creature no one is ready to take on. The sound design, set design, and direction of Alien is perfect, and will forever be one of the best horror films ever made. The Lost Boys is the best vampire movie ever made. David and his gang are the coolest vampires out there. The soundtrack to this movie is awesome. It has a great setting focusing on the boardwalk and Grandpa's cabin. The Frog Brothers are great. The makeup effects and looks of the vampires are simple but iconic. Schumacher was at his best making The Lost Boys. Next up is Creepshow. I've always loved anthology films. We get several short horror films all in one with a cool comic book style wrapping them all up together. It's hard choosing a favorite segment, but I gotta go with Stephen King's Meteor short or Leslie Nielsen's Something to Tide You Over. But of all the segments in the film, The Crate scared me the most. Romero, Stephen King, and Tom Savini were the dream team to create such a fun and scary film. Not only is An American Werewolf in London the best werewolf movie ever made, but it also has the greatest werewolf transformation ever done by Rick Baker. This movie has a great balance between terrifying scenes like the man being chased in the subway and hilarious scenes like David running naked through the zoo. I love all the characters in the film, and I really love seeing Jack and David talk as he begins to rot and decay more and more until he's practically a skeleton at the end. Scream is one of the best slashers and most important films in horror history. This movie was a game changer, and every film following for the next decade had to be just like Scream. This film also had some of the best writing and characters of any slasher film. Sydney is by far my favorite final girl, and I love the film being more of a whodunit mystery rather than just a silent masked maniac like Jason and Michael. I also love the twist of having the killer be more than one person, and Billy and Stu are perfect in it. I love Alfred Hitchcock, and Psycho is by far his best. Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh are great in the movie. I love the locations and the sets, and once again another horror film with an iconic soundtrack. And like many others, the shower scene freaked me out for years. John Carpenter's Halloween bounces back and forth between 4th, 5th, and 6th with Psycho and Scream. They're all fantastic movies, but Halloween just beats them out. Carpenter's score, the setting of the film, Loomis's chilling speeches, and the look and acting of Michael Myers make this one of the scariest slashers of all time. It also really started the boom of slashers for the next 20 years. Without Halloween, we never would have gotten Freddy, Jason, Ghostface, or many others. Jaws was Steven Spielberg's first major film, and to this day still his best. Jaws isn't just a perfect movie, but one of the most important films in history. Without its success, we wouldn't have summer blockbusters, and without Spielberg succeeding, we wouldn't get directors like George Lucas, Robert Zemeckis, and others creating films like Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, and Star Wars. Jaws is one of the first horror films I ever saw when I was only about 3 or 4 years old, and it stuck with me to this day. I love each and every character in this film and the small town setting they live in, and Quint is one of my all-time favorite film characters ever. This film also has one of the greatest soundtracks John Williams has ever done. John Carpenter's The Thing is a very close second on my list. I love Carpenter, and this is him at his best. Kurt Russell is fantastic as Mac. I love the entire crew of characters here in this isolated research facility. They're smart and capable men thrown into something none of them are prepared for, and now they have to work together to survive. That is, if they trust each other. I also can't forget to mention it has some of the greatest makeup and gore effects I've ever seen in a film, along with a creepy soundtrack. My number 1 is The Shining. I love Kubrick's directing. I love the look and feel of the hotel. Jack Nicholson is one of my favorite actors, and he's at his absolute best here. I love all the other actors in the film too, from Wendy and Danny to Lloyd and Mr. Grady. The film is creepy and sometimes funny. Much like Steven Spielberg, the first time I saw it, I didn't love it, but I kept thinking about it and watched it over and over again. Eventually became obsessed with it, and for the last decade, The Shining has been my favorite horror film. It also happens to be my favorite book. I love both the book and film for their differences. There are some things I wish were carried over, but I'm also glad that some things stayed in the book. The Shining is filled with iconic moments, like the axe through the door and red rum, him chasing Danny through the snowy maze, and much more. The scene when Jack goes to room 237 and sees the old lady in the bathtub is one of the creepiest scenes I've ever seen and will always give me chills. There's a ton more scary movies that I love that just couldn't make the top 10. Some honorable mentions are Trick or Treat, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Cabin in the Woods, Shaun of the Dead, Evil Dead 2, Christine, The Fog, Dark Night of the Scarecrow, Jason Lives, and of course Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Well, there's my top 10 horror films. Let me know if you agree or disagree and what your top 10 favorites are in the comments below.